A very good afternoon to you this 26th day of December 2018. Thank you so much for making the time for us. My name is Zainab Ismail. Now, Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi has faulted the criteria the government is using to fight corruption, saying the task forces being formed are a waste of time and taxpayers' money. He claims the president is also selective in his fight against corruption by allowing those close to him with questionable wealth acquisition to go scot-free and escape auditing. Backed by some Luhya leaders, Mudavadi once again expressed optimism that he will be the next president come 2022, saying as the only remaining opposition leader in the country, he is the only one capable of leading Kenya properly.
Nilisema juzi, Bwana President Uhuru, ukitaka kugonga ufisadi, gonga kichwa, wacha kugonga mkia. Na nikasema kuna wajamaa katika Kenya hii wanatoa pesa kushinda kampuni ya Safaricom. Hati wana pesa kushinda Safaricom. Wanatoa hapa na hapa pesa kushinda Safaricom. Lakini wakati Uhuru Kenyatta anaitisha zile kampuni kubwa Kenya ambazo zinalipa ushuru, kampuni za hawa jamaa hazionekani huko. Haziko kwa orodha. Sasa wewe jiulize, kama mtu anatoa pesa ambayo inashinda Safaricom na kampuni yake haionekani kule kwa wale wanalipa ushuru, sasa hii pesa imetoka wapi?
Raila amesimama mara nyingi, hajafanikiwa, sivyo? Musalia amesimama. Kwa hivyo sisi Waluhya kama tunataka kusimamisha candidate, tusianze na mpya, tutakuwa kama tunarudi katika standard 1 kama hajawahi kusimama. Tunaelewana?
Jana mwingine akasema yeye ni kama kuku. Mheshimiwa mzima anasema yeye ni kama kuku imeenda kutafuta nini? Mahindi. Itarudi nyumbani jioni. Sasa mnachagua viongozi wanasema wao ni kuku kutafuta mahindi. Hao ni wanaume kweli? Musalia Mudavadi ndiye atakuwa kiongozi president 2022.
Now, Ford Kenya Party leader Moses Wetangula has accused the Ministry of Education of inconsistency and indecision on matters affecting the education sector. The Bungoma senator, who was in Kitale town this Christmas Day, wants the Education Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohamed, to hold talks with the leaders of the Kenya National Union of Teachers to avert the looming teacher strike that is set to begin in January next year.
The Ministry of Education has now distinguished itself as the most erratic department of government in Kenya. Totally inconsistent, very erratic in their pronouncements. My dear sister Amina kama waziri na ambaye ni msichana unatoka hapa Western, sit down with the teachers and talk. The teachers have a point, you have a point. Have a middle ground and agree. This country cannot afford strikes day in, day out. Neither should we condone your oppression of teachers. Kwa sababu hii mambo ya kukata pesa ya watu kiholela, na kila Mkenya anaona pesa inaibiwa tu. Wewe unakatwa, wezi wanangojea. Wewe unakatwa, wezi wanangojea. Hiyo hatu.
Now, just a point to note on this developing story on the education sector is that in a statement dated on the 24th of December, the Teacher Service Commission indicated that it will fully cooperate with the conciliation process despite the threat by the teachers to go on strike, and will file a memorandum of response to concerns raised by NAT within 7 days. But away from that, the Kenya Wildlife Service Director of Parks and Reserves, Julius Kimani, who died last Sunday, is the first highest ranked officer to die in office at the agency. The late Julius Kimani was a career wildlife conservationist who worked with KWS for over 30 years in different capacities in many parts of the country. Kimani joined KWS in 1989 and rose steadily through the ranks to be appointed Deputy Director of Parks and Reserves in 2014. In August last year, he was confirmed as Director of Parks and Reserves. Kimani once acted as the KWS Director General Central for a period of over 1 year. Acting KWS Director General Charles Musyoki has described Kimani as a focused, courageous, disciplined and hard-working officer who gave his best to wildlife conservation. Julius Kimani will be buried on the 2nd of January next year in Kinangop, Nyandarua County. Now, persons living with disability in Turkana County celebrated Christmas by showcasing their talents in Lodwar in Naivasha. A section of revelers took to hiking at the Hell's Gate Park as part of the Christmas festivities.
Persons living with disability across Turkana County assembled at Lodwar Mixed Primary School to showcase their talents in different sports during Christmas. Among the sports played were football for the blind, 100 meters race for women, and men's javelin. After competing in the sports, the group feasted on traditionally roasted meat known as topekon before dispersing. In Naivasha, the Hell's Gate Park was the venue to a host of outdoor activities. Both local and foreign tourists arrived in large numbers as motorists queued for hours to gain access to the site. Revelers took to hiking, bike riding and gaming, among other initiatives.
We expect around 1,500 locals, followed by non-residents. We expect more than 200 non-residents. And then we have also the residents. We also expect to get a number of around 200.
Famous gorges in the park coupled with bicycle riding or the major attractions in the park that is home to hundreds of assorted wild animals.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Seth Olale, NTV.
Residents of Mlolongo town and its environs have decried an increase in uncollected heaps of solid waste and raw sewer, which they say are endangering their lives. Mlolongo town has become an eyesore with heaps of garbage strewn all over and sprawling illegal dumping sites having increased within the residential areas. This has happened despite efforts by the county government of Machakos to enhance sanitation standards within the area. Mavoko Member of Parliament Patrick Macau has urged the county government to allocate more money towards garbage collection to avoid outbreak of diseases and to boost the business environment.
It's too much that, and we are saying we want our sub-county clean. This is a haven of cholera. Allocate more funds on garbage collection. Give more funding. Tunataka tauni zetu zikuwe safi. Hatutaki siasa. Kwa sasa tunataka maendeleo.
Now, a section of Tunnel Delta residents residing at internally displaced persons camps are living in fear of harassment by government security agencies. During a meeting organized by the United Green Movement organization, the residents claimed that security agents are arresting their members and demanding 1,000 shillings for their release. At least 200 people have been arrested in different villages over the abduction of Italian national Silvio Romano. The residents have asked the United Green Movement, which is under the Kenya Parliamentary Human Rights Caucus, to intervene and help them solve their problems. They also want the government to resume humanitarian services at the camps so that Kenyans do not suffer.
Watu wako na shida hapa, hawana maji, hawana chakula, hawana manyumba, na pia hawana mahospitali na matibabu. Pia tuliona watoto wameacha shule wakati wamekuwa displaced kutoka village yao huko.
Sisi mambo haya yametutatiza sana, na sisi tungependelea vijana wetu wasalimike. Vijana youth hawana usalama hata kidogo.
And in other news making headlines across the borders, opposition candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo are now demanding that the Electoral Board deactivate SIM cards in voting machines to prevent the electronic transmission of results. Disputes about the largely untested machines have stoked tension ahead of the Sunday's long-anticipated election, which the postponed from this past weekend due to delays deploying voting materials. Congo's main opposition leader Felix Tshisekedi has warned that it would be hard to contain the anger of voters if the Electoral Commission were to delay presidential elections one more time.
7 opposition candidates, including one of the favorite
survivors of a devastating tsunami in Indonesia that killed more than 400 people are camping at a futsal stadium in the western coast of Banten province.
The desperate search continues for survivors of a tsunami which struck parts of western
All right, let's now take a look at stories making headlines in the world of sports. And Kariobangi Sharks face Nzoia Sugar this afternoon, hoping to continue their good form in the only Kenyan Premier League match to be played at Sudi Stadium in Bungoma. Sharks picked 4 points in their opening 2 matches, and they will be hoping to register a win in preparation for the Gor Mahia clash 2 days later. Nzoia, on the other hand, are in position 13 with 3 points after picking 1 victory, a 1-0 win over Zoo FC. The Gor Mahia vs Posta Rangers match that was earlier scheduled to be played on Boxing Day at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos has been postponed. The match will now be played at the Moi Stadium in Kisumu on Wednesday on the 9th of January. Gor Mahia FC initially wanted to move the match to Kasarani but could not secure the venue, hence the change. Now, Liverpool will look to heap more pressure on Manchester City on Boxing Day as they aim to extend their lead at the top by overcoming Rafa Benitez Newcastle with an incredible 15 win and 3 draws from their opening 18 Premier League games.
Tumalize top 4. So Arsenal na Chelsea wako prepared kushuka ndio tupande.
Very interesting remarks. Well, personally, I think Manchester United will be taking the lead. But away from that, LeBron James was injured in the 3rd quarter and did not return. But the Los Angeles Lakers held on to defeat the Golden State Warriors 127-101 on Christmas Day at Oracle Arena. James had 17 points. And away from our sports news, for many families in the cut-off villages of Marsabit, accessing even the most basic medical care is often a 2-day walk. In villages such as Hafare, the ill, the aged, the very young and the expectant mothers have to decide whether to make this torturous journey or just hope they will get better. Leila Mohammed documents the struggle to access healthcare for those living there.
The very young play among the very old under this manyata in Hafare village, the weather playing a big part in why at this hour this structure gives them comfort from the unbearable heat as they while away the day. For some of the babies being cuddled by their grandmothers, they don't have even the most basic defense against diseases. They should have received these jabs in hospital, but such medical facilities are non-existent here.
Wanakaa mpaka mwezi 3. Wakati mtoto anafikisha mwezi 3 ama 4, wakati wanaweza kuweka hivyo hapa hivi inabebeka, ndio wanaanza safari ya kwenda kutafutia watoto wao sindano au wenyewe.
For those heavy with child, the journey to the nearest health facility in Kor or Balha for much-needed prenatal care is an excruciating venture. Thus, they have to depend on the traditional birth attendants to take care of them.
Huyu mama na huyu hao wili ndio wanasalishanga hiyo kina mama ya hii manyata yote 3.
Awili hakiore ateza?
Mele. Akembo.
Kuna 2 kids. Huyu ni the third one mnyako piji na ameenda clinic once.
Anatarajia kujifungulia nyumbani ama hospitali?
Anasema hospitali iko mbali. Hawezi manage kwenda hospitali na kurudi tena.
There is, however, a startling distinction in Kor, the nearest center from Hafare, but that is still kilometers away.
Aramia.
Huyu mtoto nimepata hizo chanjo zote kwa sababu walikuwa wanaishi Kor hiyo siku.
In Balha, about 17 kilometers from the cut-off Hafare village, at the fall of dusk, only 2 patients were awaiting in line to be attended to. But a health crisis is unfolding in these remote pockets of villages.
A mother, a pregnant woman can come for maybe 2 NC visit, but later she delivers at home because the experience, how the situation is, how she will be handled, it's like they fear because they are not used to.
The facility has 5 beds that can care for mothers during delivery, but many still choose to stay and deliver at home with the help of traditional birth attendants, in part due to traditional practices.
Based on research, it came to be realized that between now first antenatal visit to the next one, a mother can have some complication in between, and if you give a duration maybe 1 or 2 months, then you see the mother today. Tomorrow the woman develops some complication. Some complication might not be that severe to an extent that it can be noticed early. So if the mother, maybe you see her today, develop some complication tomorrow, then and they are not severe that they can be seen earlier, then there is possibility, chances are that the mother or even the depending on the complication, they complicate even affecting the child.
The language barrier due to a huge uneducated population sometimes poses a challenge to those giving care. On some occasions, there can be a misdiagnosis. This grandmother with her grandchild in tow have been complaining about fever. They suspect they have been infected with malaria, but the nurse on duty will inform them with certainty what ails them after testing their blood. They braved the daytime heat to get to this facility just before dusk falls, but for many other families, it's just not worth the trouble. Leila Mohammed, NTV, Marsabit County.
Quite unfortunate. Well, that report there by Leila Mohammed brings us to a close on our 1 p.m. bulletin this hour. Many thanks for keeping us company. We are keeping an eye on for you for all the stories that are making headlines across the country on and beyond in our subsequent bulletins. You do not want to miss that. My name is Zainab Ismail. Have a good afternoon this Boxing Day.